A radically innovative water park set in a beautifully landscaped tropical environment, Volcano Bay ambitiously aims to transcend your typical water park experience. But according to TripAdvisor, Volcano Bay happens to be the worst reviewed water park in Orlando by a fairly significant margin. So is it worth a trip? Hi, I'm the Frugal Brit, and for this video I'm going to provide a breakdown of the good and the not so good things about Universal's Volcano Bay to help you decide whether this water park is worth a visit on your vacation. In addition to that, I will be providing a full tour of all the slides and attractions, as well as providing my top tips to help you get the best out of any visit here. Don't forget to subscribe if you're interested in future Orlando vacation content. So Volcano Bay is located very close to International Drive, but it is separated by the Interstate 4 highway. On the other side of this, it's right next to the giant Cabana Bay Beach Resort complex. Unless you are staying at an on-site Universal Orlando resort, you can only access Volcano Bay via the main transportation hub over at Universal City Walk, where you'll find regular shuttle buses taking you to its entrance. If you're staying on site, you will benefit from the free bus transportation. Those staying at the Cabana Bay Resort will have special access to its dedicated entrance. So the theme of this park is around the culture of the Watauga Islanders, who happened to stumble across this tropical paradise and decided to make it their home before adding all the slides and water experiences that make up the park today. One of the most unique things about this park is its Tapu Tapu system, which is an interactive bracelet that kind of looks like sort of a 1990s smartwatch. And what this does is it allows you to tap into a virtual ride queue, meaning that instead of queuing on a flight of stairs in the blazing sun, you can actually do other things whilst you're waiting in a virtual queue. I'll throw a link in the description explaining Tapu Tapu in more detail and how to get it set up. Alright, so now I'll give you a full tour of the 4 separate villages at Volcano Bay, including the 14 separate attractions in order of popularity, so ending with the thrill rides in and around the volcano. So with that said, let's head over to Wave Village, located between the park entrance and the base of the Krakatoa volcano, designed for sunbathing and relaxation. In my opinion, the most picturesque section of the park, with the lush tropical landscaping and stunning views of the volcano. The centerpiece of this village is the Watauga Beach wave pool, with a stunning series of waterfalls that pour into the sparkling lagoon. Adjacent to the Watauga Beach is the Reef, which provides guests with a more relaxing pool area featuring its own private waterfall and an impressive view of the Kukiri body plunge drop slide. Moving over to the northeast section, you'll arrive at River Village, most suitable for families and young visitors. First up is Kopeka Y Winding River, which is the centerpiece of this village and passes through the tropical landscape of Volcano Bay, including the Krakatoa volcano. For those of you with any young children in your group, you'll want to check out Runamukka Reef. This super playful area, which features overflowing twisting slides, bubbling geysers, water slides and more. If you have any toddlers too small for all the chaos of Runamukka Reef, then you have Tot Tiki Reef right next door with a tot-sized water volcano, splash slides and a family of friendly tikis with spraying fountains. Lastly, at River Village you have Onu Aika Moana, which features 2 twisting and turning multi-person raft slides. Despite being located in the child-friendly village, these stomach-dropping slides are certainly not short on thrills. Nestled along the shores of a river, Rainforest Village contains an impressive assortment of attractions for thrill seekers. Starting this area you have Maku and Puihi, which are 2 multi-person raft slides. Maku features 3 high-banked saucer elements, and then over on Puihi you'll careen through a dark winding cavern before exploding out into the far side of its funnel. On the southern end of Rainforest Village you have the Oh No and Oh Ya drop slides. where you'll plummet down through twists and turns and soar out into the waters at the base of the Krakatoa volcano. Definitely not for the faint-hearted. These are known to take people by surprise as you're thrown out 6 feet above the water into a 10-foot deep pool. At the heart of the rainforest village is the Tiawa the Fearless River, which you'll need a life vest for. You will soon understand why, as this is one of those lazy rivers but without the lazy, with its churning rapids and chopping waves. Next up we have Taniwha Tubes, which consists of 4 separate Easter Island inspired slides with rafts for single or double riders. The last section of my park tour is the Krakatoa Volcano, which is of course the centrepiece of this entire theme park, standing 200 feet high. Not everyone is aware that you can actually walk inside the volcano and even interact with the island spirit named Vol, who's been known to crack a joke or two. The first ride at the volcano is Punga Races, where single rider guests are sent on their manta ray mats sliding down 4 lanes through underwater sea caves. And the first racer to cross the finish line receives a watery salute from Punga himself. Next we have Kala and Tai Nui, which are 2 high-speed twisting body slides with the trapdoor starts. These 2 slides happen to be the joint tallest drop capsule slides in the world at 125 feet. Next up is Kokiri Body Plunge, which just like the previous 2 slides on this tour can also claim to be the joint tallest drop slide in the world. For those of you brave enough to take the plunge, you'll take a 70-degree fall through a drop door and down 125 feet of slide and ending in a pool filled with guests at Wave Village. The final ride on my park tour, which is the signature attraction at Volcano Bay, is Krakatoa Aqua Coaster. This is a very unique attraction in that it combines both roller coaster and water slide elements. This ride will propel your 4-person canoe uphill using induction motors and through dark twists and turns inside the volcano before emerging with a plunge through a shimmering waterfall. I'll begin the positives by saying that this park is absolutely stunning, especially with the views of the volcano as you enter the park through the Wave Village. Very picturesque. You've got to give Universal credit in having produced something truly iconic here. It certainly helps that this park has a reputation for being very clean and well maintained, which includes the restrooms, lockers and changing rooms. One thing that gets a lot of praise from guests visiting Volcano Bay is how modern it feels when compared to some of its competitors. Obviously, the Tapu Tapu system is the main source of this admiration. This system isn't universally loved for reasons we'll get into in the next section, but I will stick my neck out here in saying that I think it's a fantastic inclusion. You can use it to charge your purchases such as food, souvenirs and drinks, etc. But the main purpose of Tapu Tapu though is to make the best use of your time whilst waiting in a queue. So instead of wasting your time climbing up staircases in the blazing sun, you can of course use this time in the lazy river, the fearless river, or getting a bite to eat. Also, the inclusion of the many interactive Tapu Tapu points throughout the park that squirt water, blow bubbles underwater, or even play music underwater is a really nice touch. I do find it really hard to imagine this park without this system. One thing I believe deserves particular praise at this water park is the number of lifeguards, which you'll find in all the right places and are known for being highly attentive at this park. I've read many reviews in my TripAdvisor research where guests had noted how lifeguards had dealt with some precarious situations impressively. In terms of the attractions on offer, they're obviously fantastic as you would have seen from the previous section, so I won't dwell on this. Compared to Aquatica and the Disney water parks, it's probably fair to say that there's a slightly better focus on thrill rides. I was also impressed with the wave pool and the well choreographed rhythmic clapping to welcome the waves. So, food. My expectations were pretty low going in, but I was pleasantly surprised by the quality of food at Volcano Bay. I think this is an area where Volcano Bay fairly comfortably beats Aquatica in my opinion, and it does seem that many other guests on TripAdvisor felt the same. And unlike Aquatica, you are allowed to bring your own food, which gets a big thumbs up from me given the name of my channel. As outlined in my Aquatica review, you are limited to bringing in very small snacks over there. So as I pointed out in the introduction, Volcano Bay is the worst reviewed Orlando water park on TripAdvisor. And I'll be honest, I'm not aware of any other theme parks in Florida that actually get worse reviews, though I'm sure they exist. So why exactly is that? Well, the first reason is because Volcano Bay had some very serious problems when it first opened in 2017, the most serious of which were issues with its Tapu Tapu system, and overall just struggling to deal with the high demand. There's far fewer one-star reviews these days, but the park still hasn't quite recovered from having received so many within the first few months back in 2017. Understandably, there are people who are a lot more laid back when it comes to planning a trip to a theme park compared with an obsessive like myself. For example, some would be quite content to go on a weekend and/or arrive between 10 AM and 12. Most theme parks find it much harder to please these guests, but I believe Volcano Bay is particularly vulnerable by comparison. One of the reasons for this is that a lot of people are taken by surprise by the fact that you can't park or be dropped off directly at Volcano Bay, unless you're staying at a Universal hotel. Instead, you have to catch a bus from the main transportation hub at Universal. This adds quite a bit of time that people often hadn't planned for. On those busy days, things have been known to snowball from this point if you've arrived after 10 AM on a busy day. The queues to get through security and the bus transport is reminiscent of what you have to endure at the airport. When these guests do finally arrive, the changing rooms are extremely crowded near the entrance, and all the sun lounges facing the volcano have been taken. In this scenario, the wait times on all attractions are close to the maximum. So yeah, these are the guests that Volcano Bay has really struggled to appease ever since the park opened. They've made some efforts here, such as handing out treats to guests waiting in line to get to the park, so they obviously care, but overall it remains a problem that is hurting their online reviews substantially. I will of course provide some tips to avoid being part of this sort of scenario in the tip section of this video. So I mentioned earlier that I'm a fan of the Tapu Tapu system, but some guests were not as appreciative of this. Some arguing that its inclusion is indicative of the park's inability to meet the demands of its guests on busy days, and that you're often required to wait in line, before sometimes then having to wait in a real line when you enter the queue. Also, the Tapu Tapu bracelets have been known to malfunction on occasion, but if that ever happens to you though, I hear they are very efficient at sorting this out. I think one of the issues with Tapu Tapu is that people will naturally see the wait times and compare those to what you deal with at, say, one of the Disney parks, which isn't an entirely fair comparison, because unlike with Disney wait times, you can actually do stuff whilst waiting, rather than just waiting in a line. So an 80-minute wait time is much easier to tolerate at Volcano Bay. One area where Volcano Bay deserves a bit of criticism in my opinion is the hidden costs of visiting the park. So when you arrive, you'll be hit with the $26 parking fee if you've driven. If you forgot your towel, that'll cost you $6 per towel. And if you intend on using a locker for your valuables, that's going to set you back $13 for a minuscule standard locker or $16 for a reasonable sized locker. I was debating whether or not to refer to these fees given that all the competing water parks in Orlando have similar fees, but I do feel they should all be called out for the blatant exploitation. One criticism that this park has received by a fairly substantial proportion of guests is how difficult it is to navigate around the park, especially for first timers. The layout of the park isn't the easiest to understand, and there isn't a great deal of information to direct you. This isn't ideal given that you'll often be queuing for rides you haven't been to yet, many of which have names that aren't the easiest to remember. I do agree with many on TripAdvisor that it'd be nice if there were a few more maps spread around the park. In my Aquatica review, I did mention that I felt that Aquatica had a slightly better family vibe to it. In retrospect though, I don't know how fair this is really. I can't really put my finger on why, because both parks do have suitable attractions for babies and young kids. I think it's possibly due to it being a universal theme park, which typically appeals more to teenagers compared to the other parks in Orlando. So before I get on to my tips to help you get the best out of any trip to Volcano Bay, allow me to summarise very briefly. Unless you're planning to arrive at Volcano Bay early in the morning, the chances of having a disappointing experience is a bit higher than it probably should be for the price, to be honest. But if you plan ahead and take note of some of the tips in the next section of this video, I can assure you that this stunning water park is absolutely worth a trip. So my first tip, which will be no surprise to you at this point, is to arrive ahead of park opening. So let's assume the park is listed as opening at 9 AM, then you'll want to make arrangements so that your shuttle bus drops you off at 8:45 at the latest, but ideally 8:30, because they are known for letting people in before the official opening time. Alternatively, if you have the luxury of visiting Universal Orlando over several days, I would highly recommend heading to this park after 4 PM, where the wait times will be significantly lower, and it's also cool to check out this park at night. If you do have a flexibility of which day to travel, I would highly recommend picking a Monday if you can, as Mondays are the quietest days for water parks, because people generally arriving on their vacations over the weekend are less likely to pick a water park on one of their first days. Before you get to the park, I would recommend creating your Universal account online and to connect your credit card if you plan to use the tap to pay functionality of Tapu Tapu. This will make things a bit simpler for you when you enter the park. Be sure to pack a towel with you, and if possible also pick up one of those waterproof phone cases that I'll link to in the description. So as you enter the park, the common mistakes that people make are to head to the first changing room over on the left, which gets really crowded, and also to pick a sun lounger over in Waturi Beach facing the volcano. Instead of these choices, you should instead pick changing rooms towards the back of the park. But before you think about any of that, what you should be doing is heading to the Wave Village sign, checking which rides have the longest wait time before tapping into the queue for one of those attractions. So then you can effectively enter the virtual queue whilst you're getting changed and finding some good lounges with shade. A lot of people recommend heading right to the back to get changed and find a sun lounger, but personally I'm quite partial to getting changed in this area in the Rainforest Village if you can get there super early and finding a sun lounger in this particular shaded area. However, if you have some young children in your group, you'd probably be better off heading to this changing room over in River Village and setting up camp over around here. Okay, well that's it for this review. Thank you so much for watching. If you're headed to Orlando soon, I hope you have the most amazing vacation. If you do have any tips of your own that you'd like to share, please throw them in the comments. And if you're interested in future park reviews and other Orlando vacation content, don't forget to subscribe.